Welcome to Long Thoughts with Baloo, a podcast dedicated to creators and their stories. Your host, Baloo, asks creative folks to share their lives and goals. Stay a while and listen.
He's the creator of Cyberpunk, Mechton, and Castle Falkenstein. He's touched thousands of lives, including my own. It is my privilege to introduce the incomparable, the maximum, Mike Pondsmith. How are we doing today, Mike?
I'm doing fine. How about you, Baloo?
I am wonderful because I get to talk to you on the air.
If this is the high point of your day, I don't know. I got to get you out more.
It is the high point of my year. What are you talking about?
Oh, I am flattered and
um,
amused.
Thank you. I hope you're saying today's St. Patrick's Day. I hope that's going well. I don't know if it matters to you one way or the other, but
Oh, darn straight. I'm part Irish. My wife's part Irish, so we are planning to seriously drink a lot of Guinness and do the church. Although nobody in Ireland actually does that.
agreed. Yeah.
Really, we just got back from Dublin about 6 weeks ago, which was really wonderful. We've been there once or twice, and it's what we think of as Irish back here is very, very different, and yet very, very much the same. There's a tremendous amount of pride in being Irish, and I feel lucky to have enough Irish in me to be able to do that, and also to avoid being pinched on St. Patty's Day.
That's a benefit. I'm a bit Irish myself, yeah. And I don't drink or fight. Is that weird?
Well, yeah, we'll let you do that anyway. Like I said, I think they do less of that back over there in the old sod.
Yeah.
So at any rate, what do you want to ask me about gaming instead of our mutual strange heritage? And by the way, with a name like, Kennedy, yeah, it would make sense.
Yeah.
So, Baloo, tell
Before
me,
I
what do
go,
you need?
before I start asking you questions about the past and the present and all that, you just came back from Gamma. It occurs to me that I might have listeners who don't know what that is.
Gamma. The Gamma show is the Game Manufacturers of America show. It is a trade organization for all the people who put out all those games you like. We have board games, card games, you name it. I kind of know this spiel because many, many years ago, I would say about 20 now, I was president of said organization. And basically, what Gamma does is help new retailers, new manufacturers, and people who do, support stuff like the boards and the printing and all that get together and, come up with plans and design new products and all that sort of thing.
Excellent. So it's kind of like a behind the scenes big deal.
It is a behind the scenes big deal. And
I,
it's also lots of fun for us because we get to see friends, in the business that we usually don't have much call to see face to face. So, going down this year was like for us Old Home Week, tons and tons of people that we normally only talk to on the phone, and that's if we're lucky.
that's cool. So you don't just get to work, you also get to hang out and see your friends. That's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of hanging up and work all at the same time. A lot of deals end up going down in the bar.
There's that Irish thing creeping in
Which is
again.
actually interesting. Yeah, it's funny because a lot of the deals and everything go down in the bar when all the seminars and serious discussions are done, and that's almost exactly the way GDC used to be. I used to go to the GDC conference, which is the big San Francisco conference for game digital development, the Game Designers Conference, and there was a time when it was held in one hotel. Now it covers all of Moscone Center and all the surrounding area and every hall there. But there was a time when we could cram it all in one hotel, and everything happened in a bar. You'd have 70 or 80 of the best designers and then me kind of hanging out, and we would all be drinking lots of drinks and hanging out and talking about game design, which was seventh heaven.
Speaking of digital, you make Cyberpunk, and duh. And you make Mechton and Castle Falkenstein, and you've had some hands in some other stuff like the old TSR products. But you don't. That's not it. You also have done some video game credits too, right?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, usually video game credits you don't get much credit because the teams are just enormous. When I do a tabletop game, it's me and the editors and, a few contributing writers, and, you can kind of credit people. But, so for example, I was on Matrix Online, and somewhere way the hell at the bottom probably my name is on a credit, even though I did a bunch of stuff on it. And that's kind of the way the nature of the game is. Actually, what happened was I started out in video games working at a company called California Pacific way back when I was just going through college and getting my design degree. And it turned out like we did the original Alakabeth and so forth for Lord British, Richard Garriott. And, we were both like, I think, 17 or 18 at that point, a couple of young punks, basically. And basically, I did over a summer Mekton, or the prototype of Mekton, and got sucked out of video gaming because at the time Tabletop was a lot more lucrative and it could do a lot more. You could use your imagination instead of Apple IIe's that had, if we were lucky, 16-bit graphics. And I wasn't in digital for many, many years until around 2000 when I was approached by Microsoft to work on Xbox titles. And basically at that point I said, oh, look, we have a lot better graphics now. I'm good.
Well, we're talking about, I guess, old video games. You had a hand in the original Ultima title, didn't you? You just mentioned Lord British.
Yeah, I was involved in that, which was kind of amusing. Basically, I was the graphic designer on it, which was,
Wow.
I didn't do code at that point, still learning code, and but I did packaging and advertising, that sort of thing. I have a degree in graphic design, as well as a degree in psychology, and I liked a kid when I was teaching design at college level. I used to say, mistakenly, I put together the perfect combination to be a game designer, which was I learned, design, and I learned psychology. And because of the psychology, I had to learn statistics, and I had to learn the basics of semi-programming. And now, of course, we can get all in one big package, which is nice.
Yeah,
But
now they
back
have a
then-
game design degree. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it has changed quite a bit. And, as I've said to my students, in the past, you guys have no idea because we had to make it up as we went along, which sort of makes me sound like that guy who said we hiked to the snow both ways uphill and snow is over our heads, but it's kind of true.
That's funny. Yeah, I'm sorry, my parents talk like that sometimes. But if it makes you feel better, they're awesome people. So.
Excuse me, have a sec. Please, can you talk to Stephen and tell him he doesn't attack the neighborhood? Or we have a corgi who thinks he runs the neighborhood.
It's okay.
In an office area, that can get to be very interesting. He nowadays, when we have morning meeting, he goes around everybody's offices and rounds them up for the meeting.
Oh, that's adorable.
It is, and he's a little corgi, so he's got that kind of pompous kind of, come here, we're going now, sir. I always imagine sounding like a British officer out of Doctor Who.
Nice. Doctor Who, the dog version. That's great.
Yeah. So I worked in digital back then, and then I worked, digital again for the last, I'd say, 15, 12 years, I guess. And I got dragged back into Tabletop because my son was interested and rather surprised me by expressing a desire to actually restart the company more because it was kind of ticking over in a back burner. We were fulfilling orders, doing occasional products, but not a whole lot. I was really busy. And then my wife wanted to get back involved because she was just terminally bored, and she was the business manager, and she wanted to get in and do more creative stuff because she's a very good writer. And then a lot of the old Talsorian crew wanted to get together. We had an enormous meeting a couple of years back in San Francisco. We all got together, ate a lot of sushi, made plans, and got crazy. And then we had a whole new generation of people who had played our stuff who wanted to get involved as well. So we got a lot of really great people who joined up on the team, which we then dragged out to the Gamma show this last week.
like the next generation of Talsorian. That sounds really awesome. I bet it was a blast.
It was a blast. It was actually funny. My son designed a ball, one of those ball shirts for the company, and it's the Talsorian logo on the front, and then it says on the back, the Talsorian Resurrection Tour. And then it gives all the cons we're appearing at, plus a bunch of the fictional places that show up in our various games.
Like Night City, that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a Night City stop. There's a Nilfgaard. Yeah, at least it just yelled Nilfgaard. One half of the company right now is obsessed with Witcher. And I'm not on that project. I'm on Cyberpunk and Mechton. So I hear Witcher in the other sides of the office and people screaming about how many counties or whatever are in Nilfgaard and what happened to, Melinda Fildabar or something. And I'm like, I have no idea what they're
Oh God, I'm a huge fan of the Witcher games and the novels they come from, and I couldn't tell you how many counties are in Nilfgaard.
They had to figure it out too. Nobody knew. I'm not sure Sapkowski knows for sure.
That's funny. Speaking of that.
Yeah, you should interview my son sometime, and he will tell you Witcher for the next 10 hours.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Speaking of the Witcher and the different teams, you've been working with CD Projekt Red to turn Cyberpunk into a video game. It occurs to me that I think I read somewhere that you've been looking for somebody to do that, the right team or person, for a long time now.
Yeah.
What makes them so perfect?
For one thing, they're Cyberpunk fans. It was really funny. What happened was, we've had Cyberpunk options since the mid-'80s by various video game companies. And most of them look at it as, it's guns and this, and, we're going to reskin it. And we've had some very, very large names wanting to do something with it, but they've always kind of missed what the feel was and what the characters were. But as our friends over there say, back then we had communism and cyberpunk. So Cyberpunk turned out to be one of the few games that was actually translated over into Polish. And when we actually licensed the translation, we were going like, that'll be 6 copies, 6 copies of Cyberpunk in Polish. And, we got the test copies, we were looking at them going, it's cool, I think it says what's in our game, but it's Polish, so I have no idea. Lisa's comment is it's the world's most valuable 6 copies, but they played it, and they liked it, and they sold copies of the copies when it could get it in, as they were starting out. And so they called us up and said, we really want to do Cyberpunk. And we went, okay. And I had done a lot of work with what had been previously, Iron Curtain countries who were now doing development. And I've been doing this via Microsoft. A lot of my job was getting on a plane, flying to, like Bulgaria or something, where a team was putting something together. So most of those were kind of, very confused sweatshop kind of operations. So I thought, okay, I'll go over and check it out, but I'm not sure about these guys, but they sound like really fans. And then before I left, they sent a copy of Witcher 2.
The video game.
Witcher 2 is, my son Cody says, the only game he's ever played from start to finish twice.
And the only one?
Yeah, the only one he's ever. Cody plays a billion games. He does a lot more digital than I do. I don't have as much time, but I tend to concentrate on things like like the Gundam Saga or something. It's kind of my interest levels. I do a lot of flight sim and vehicle stuff. So at any rate, basically we saw Witcher 2 and we said, oh my God, this is insane. This is gorgeous. And I said, I got to see what these guys are like. So we went over on, they invited us over, and I went over and checked it out, and they were, this really cool operation, and a lot of fun people, and they also had just the technology base that half of the, dev groups I ever dealt with through Microsoft, they wish they had had. As I said, at that point, I'd join you guys if I could ASP Polish and wanted to move all the way over to Warsaw. Little knowing that I was going to be going over to Warsaw a lot anyway. So they had the skill set and they had the love of it. They knew this stuff. They were, if you look at the now infamous trailer, there are call-outs to Cyberpunk all through there. in the advertising and, little comments, things that are going on. You look at the edge of a gun and it'll go Militech and it'll have the logos in it and everything. And I went, these guys get it. And they know how to tell a story. So, it was basically a pretty nice match there.
Whoa. So they made the trailer before you actually said yes? That was their pitch?
No, they did the trailer afterward.
Okay.
And I got slightly involved in that, but by that time, we'd seen their ideas and prospective stuff. I'd hung out with them. We talked. They'd ask me a million questions, and I walked out there saying, there's stuff in there they know about that I've probably forgotten about cyberpunk, because it's hard to keep like 9 or 10 books in your head all the time.
Yeah.
Plus Mechon and everything else. So, yeah, they were fans. They are fans, and they got it, and they realized that it was basically a vehicle for telling story as well as shooting things up.
Oh, yeah, it's way more than pew-pew guns and explosions. Are you kidding?
Exactly.
It
And
kind
they
of...
got that.
Oh, yeah, it kind of doesn't fit in my head that a bunch of big-name video game companies couldn't see past the guns. That's kind of stunning to me as a massive video gamer.
Yeah.
I've probably got hundreds of video games on my shelf and hundreds more that I only have digital copies of.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that I think one small company we did a cell phone game with got most of it, and they were fans. And then everybody else, it was like, well, we're going to reskin, a version of GTA. And we were going, it doesn't work like GTA, So, yeah, basically, they were the perfect matchup in terms of, both how they do their corporate culture. They don't ship anything till they feel it's ready. And because they're their own distributor through GOG and so forth, they have the luxury of being able to do that and the stubbornness to go ahead and do it anyway. And they love cutting-edge technologies, and they like the topic. Like I said, the last trip we were over there, I visited 2 of the studios, and we spent, a week basically talking about, like, what goes on in Night City and how the things run and what does it look like and how does it feel like and, what's a night like there, And so there's a lot of interaction going on. And since they didn't know that I worked in digital at the time, it was one of those happy coincidences that they kind of looked up and said, oh, so you can actually, like, really participate in this. So what was originally going to be one trip, and then we signed a contract, became going over to Warsaw a lot. Lisa was commenting today, where's Poland phone? Because I actually have a cell phone that I use just in Poland. And then that's how often I'm there now. I have my Polish cell phone.
Nice.
So we can stay in touch.
Do they, and I'm going to borderline sound egotistically here, and I don't mean to do that. That's not my intent at all. I've only been to one other nation in my life. I've been to Denmark, and pretty much everybody there either spoke or completely understood English. I've only seen some like behind-the-scenes stuff from the Witcher CDs and DVDs on CG Project Red. Do they speak English too? Do you get a translator? Do you write stuff down and run it through a computer?
No, most of them speak English very well.
Excellent.
I'm embarrassed because I cannot speak Polish. Zip. I have zip Polish. My wife and my son, because they're working on Witcher and they're reading the books or trying to read the books as they get translated, they actually have taken courses in Polish. There is a problem which I gather is almost a neurological one, which is that you have to, as a young person, a child, have heard some of the phoneme combinations to be able to really hear a language. And I don't have any of them. There's tons of Polish that I don't hear all the words correctly because I have nothing wired in my brain to do that. And I also have the problem of I grew up a chunk of my life in the Midwest, and there's a lot of Polish background in the Midwest, and particularly Michigan, where I was living for a big chunk of my childhood. And so I have Polish, but it's Americanized Polish.
It's not the same, yeah.
Oh, no, it doesn't sound anything the same. And as a result, I mishear things, and I can't pronounce it. But I was lucky in that almost everybody at CD speaks translated English sounds great. Basically, I can talk with everybody pretty much. I very, very rarely run across somebody in a company who doesn't speak, fairly passable English. It's a very international company, and they hire a lot of people from all over the planet.
So communication, there's no barrier at all there. That's good. I was afraid that that would present
Oh, no,
itself in slow development.
not at all. It doesn't slow anything. And particularly, if you can sit around and discuss development in a really, really loud bar in Krakow at like midnight and be talking about like ways you're going to do particular things in the game and, basic theories on how we're going to translate what was in the the paper game to the video game and make it work. And you're doing that at a bar at like, 1 or 2 in the morning and music's pounding and everyone's drinking and yelling and having a great time. And you all understand each other.
Yeah, right. So,
Well, it's a colorful scene.
say again, I'm sorry?
It's a colorful scene.
I bet. I've always wanted to ask somebody this question, and unfortunately I can only ask it to a game developer who is, like Dungeons & Dragons is produced by many people. White Wolf is produced by many people. Cyberpunk is basically produced by you and a small team of other people. So I might actually be able to ask somebody this question finally. As a game developer, how do you know when to make a new version of something as opposed to just produce supplements for an old one? Like, how did you know to jump from, I think it was Cyberpunk 2013 to Cyberpunk 2020? Is there like a light switch that goes off in the brain, or?
There's a switch that goes off in the brain, which is what is the learning curve of the player. I'll give you an example. I won't say we pioneered, but we in White Wolf basically together pioneered the idea of character roles and very, very long explanations of how to do roles. And the reason for that was, for example, when we wrote Cyberpunk, no one knew what was in the genre. They had no idea. So we had to educate them. But by the time we got to 2020, a lot of people had by that point seen Gibson, they'd read, Hardwired, they played versions of the game, and it was now in a popular mental culture to figure out how to do it. Think of it this way. If you were back in, the early 70s and you had to do Star Wars, you would have to acquaint people with what Jedi Knights were, because that was a pretty weird concept back then.
Agreed.
We have guys that like these glowing swords, and they fight kind of like samurai, and they have mind control powers. So you'd spend a lot of time the first rev of Star Wars explaining that, which you do. But by the time you got to the third rev of Star Wars, everyone would understand that. They go, okay, we're the Jedi, man. So what happened between 2020 and 2013 was people now knew enough about Cyberpunk where I could go into more depth. I could give it a more rich environment. I could get more background into it. So it was a natural progression. And the thing is that by now, many of the things I'm kind of appalled to find out are now basically tropes in Cyberpunk. I go on a whole lot of Reddit boards, including several Reddit Cyberpunk boards, and I'll see, people using slang out of 2020 and 2013 as part of the argot of Cyberpunk. And I'll go, okay, so, we've obviously left enough of a mark, and it means that, they're not going to have a problem grasping what we're doing in 77.
That makes a lot of sense. And I've never told anybody this except the people who were present in the situation at my job. At one of my previous jobs, I was furious with my boss. And he was kind of furious with me. It was not a good scene. Neither one of us were happy with each other. And he's turning colors. And, I mean, we're adults, right? You can't swear and hit each other and throw things. We're not children. And I called him a chumba, and I just stormed off. And he has no idea what I said. But I felt better.
Part, you called him your friend. That was the weird part, is that it took a while and now people know that. But at the time, chumba is actually a translation into friend.
I know that, but he thought I was calling him something evil.
Yeah. But, there are, bits and pieces that pop up like that, and it's always fun to see it. I think I saw it like a shirt not that long ago
That's really cool. I don't have a hard copy of 2013. I've got a PDF of it, but I have a hard copy
Yeah.
of 2020 in the other room, and I've probably memorized most of it. But from time to time, I'll go take it off the shelf and flip through the giant slang vocabs like block
Oh yeah.
charts because those are so much fun. Did you just make those
Yeah.
all up by yourself?
Um, I did with some of the original, what we used to call the Palima, a bunch of people that we had out of Palo Alto who worked with us for a long time and are now pursuing other long and illustrious careers in game development as well. Um, but because they were college when we all joined up. But a lot of it came from, studying other languages and slangs and things like that. So there's a lot of Pan-African in there. There's a lot of, weird Japanese, of course. There's a little Chinese. There's actually a couple pieces I think are like Eastern European Polish. And a lot of it was taking things that said something in another language, making sure we didn't insult anybody, and then adapting it. Because the idea was that street speak was going to be where all these cultures met, and they had to, much like Pidgin English, find a mutual level of discussion. And you couldn't assume they all knew English,
Right.
because they were coming from all over a very, very fractioned world. So, yeah, street speak, as we use it, was sometimes totally made up. Other times, like frack, for example. It was, at the time when I was writing it, there was this running gag about, Battlestar Galactica and how frack stood in for a much stronger word that nowadays probably everybody says. But I'll respect your FCC situation here. And, I said, I've got to put this in. I love Galactica. It cracks me up. So, yeah, I'm putting it in. And luckily, Paramount or whoever didn't come and sue me. But now it's part of the language. And I thought, well, extrapolation, yeah, it should be there. And then we can get some other stuff, So, yeah, that's how street speak basically evolved. And I think it works that way because people can see the roots of it, and thus it feels authentic. And one of the things we tried really hard to do was to make sure that cyberpunk would be a relatively authentic extrapolation of the existing future as we knew it.
That means there was even more work to put into that than I already thought there was. Holy crap.
I'll kind of give you an idea I usually use is one of our editors, actually I got him a subscription to Jane's Defense Weekly because he edited a lot of the weapons stuff, and we wanted him to be up to date on how weapons and things work. There are blueprint plans out there for how AB4s work.
Wow.
In fact, I cracked up a couple months ago. Somebody actually built something that's like so close to an AB4 that, I immediately said, yeah, we need to get one of these, except it costs like, $30 million and it's being developed by DARPA. But they took this kind of square box-like, plane thing that they had designed, and they flew it off a field out by Nellis and flew it around, and it looked and landed and acted like an AB. And I said, yep, okay, we're there. Well, AB4s were worked out essentially because I love the Blade Runner flying cars, but I said, that's anti-gravity. I have no idea we'll ever get anti-gravity. That's kind of dumb. But I love Harrier jets. I could put a Harrier jet engine into essentially a enormous minivan, and I could probably get that to fly, hell, with enough thrust and get anything off the ground. So basically, we then sat down, a friend of mine who works in aeronautics, and I sat down and basically started working out like, okay, where's the thrust vectors have to be, and how does that work, and when does the thing tip over, and what kind of fly-by-wire do we need to do it? And we blueprinted out how an 84 works. And then I'm watching on YouTube or something, and I'm going, oh, there's an AB4. Okay, we're kind of right. Looks about right. Flies about the same way. Yeah, they're going to have trouble in that corner. Yep, they had trouble in that corner.
Wow. So my favorite game you've made, hands down, is the Cyberpunk 2020, specifically that version, Cyberpunk 2020. What is yours? Is that one your favorite too?
Oddly enough, it isn't my favorite. I love the background, and I'm very, very fond of it. I'm a giant robot head by nature, and it's what got me started in this. So I actually am very fond of Mekton because it was my first campaign in the first-hand design. And, in my fantasies, I may walk the mean streets of Night City, and in real life I kind of do that occasionally too. But, my fantasy is I want to have a really, really big, dangerous red robot that, can fire lasers out of its hands. And my ultimate fantasy is I walk downtown and I step on someone's car when I get into the parking space.
Awesome.
And I remember once I had a great dream where I basically was somehow or another I flew I think it was a Vector, but one of our suits down to like this white sand beach in the Bahamas and landed there and hunkered it down. And I opened the cockpit. I'm sitting there looking at the tide, and I pull out a collapsible fishing rod. And I start fishing out of the cockpit of my mecha, and I'm going, yeah, okay, I could live with this. I could do this. Cyberpunk, Cyberpunk is more like, oddly enough, things I have lived in real life. So it's not as much a fantasy for me.
There's I'll have to send you the link. I didn't see that long ago either. I was reading, I might have actually seen it on your website, come to think of it. There was a Japanese developer who was talking about how when he was a kid, Gundam was first a thing, and that he got sick of waiting for somebody else to build one in reality land. So he was like, screw it, I'll do it myself. And now you can actually buy them. They cost.
The Kurabata.
Say again?
The Kurabatas.
Yes. Yeah, that rings a bell.
Yeah. Yeah, the Kurabatas, we actually posted that in our website.
Okay,
and
that is where I saw it. Okay.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because now, there's an American version being built.
Really?
Of kind of they're talking about having super robot wars now.
Oh, jeez.
And the other day, one of the other J, one of the other J's, like Girl J, she sent me, she came in and sent me a text earlier and then came into the meeting in the morning and she said, I just love this. There's this, giant robot thing called the Kurabatas, and they have a thing called the smile trigger, where when the little Japanese girl who's controlling it in her little helmet smiles, the guns go off.
Oh, that's awesome.
And all day, Jay would come through and go, smile trigger, smile trigger. And I'm like, will you stop this?
That is fantastic. So
we have.
Go ahead.
We have a lot of mecha here. Our production manager, she's also a major mecha geek too. And in fact, we ended up, she and I, in like a almost yelling argument about like which Gundam was the best Gundam the other day. And we finished the conversation. I said there are very few places on Earth where this would be a legitimate conversation in a meeting of a company.
Oh, in a company boardroom? Yeah, I bet. My friends and I argue about geek stuff all the time, like it's real. And my other half and my mother-in-law look at me like, it's a cartoon, right? I go, yeah, but.
Yeah, since I get paid to do it, my mother, it got to a point when she stopped saying, when are you going to get a real job? And she kind of accepted, well, he has a company, he hires a whole bunch of people, I go into stores and stuff all over the place. I guess it's a real job. I'm like, okay, fine. You'll accept this, I don't have to go work in a grocery store to become a lawyer.
So I've played, I don't know, maybe 2 sessions of Mekton in my entire life. For a long time, the only product I knew you made was Cyberpunk. I grew up on it. I love it. You're an idol of mine. This podcast is the coolest thing that has happened to me in a long time. I rank this up on my 3 most positive achievements of my life. Falling in love.
Okay, that means you have to come to Seattle and we have to do something to get you out of it more. That's obviously it. If I'm the high point of your life, we really need to work on this. I have some bars I have to take you to.
All right. I don't drink, but we'll do something. Let's see. There's fall in love and get it right the first time. Join the Big Brother Big Sister program. Interview Mike Pondsmith on the air. That's it. We're actually past the half-hour mark. Before I hang up. My other half challenged me to ask this question. You're the first person I've
Okay.
interviewed who isn't a poet in some form or another. Like hip hop and
Uh-huh.
rap are really close to poetry, and so far I've had a movie director on who is also a poet, poets, and a comedic rap star. Um, and
Okay.
with the 10th show, I expanded a little bit, and there's a stock question I ask everybody, and I wasn't going to ask you, and my other half's like, do it anyway. So apparently I'm going to do it
Okay.
anyway. What is your favorite word or sound?
Man, there's a lot of good ones. See, one of the bad problems is I actually am a poet and
Oh,
write
really?
poetry.
Oh,
I
I'm
tend to write
terribly
open.
sorry. I'd have had you read something. I'm sorry.
I have to go dig it out, but yeah, I'm even known for having written sonnets to my girlfriends, but that's another story. Um, yeah. God, man, there's just so many really wonderful words. The problem is, I fell in love with words about the time I started reading like early Hemingway, and he could like say a word like glisten, and you go, okay, I got exactly how this works, you know. Um, incandescent.
Oh, yeah, that one's nice. Collecting.
Incandescent. One of the things I love is neon on a street at night. Kind of like the core. If you want to see what cyberpunk is like, it's neon and streets at night.
That's cool. I've I ask everybody that at this point. It's become a stock question, and I've written them down in this book and the reasons and everything. And that one's good.
Incandescent, because of the sense of it's self glowing, self renewing.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us. So at some point I can't believe you're. Oh my God, you're a poet too. Holy crap! So at some point, I will have to have you on the show again, and you'll read something. That would be awesome. I had no idea. I'm terribly sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Most people don't. It's like I also have been in bands and things like that, and so that was kind of leading. I wrote poetry, which led to writing songs. For example, if you ever look at 2020, Never Fade Away, is an actual song.
Is it
If my Telecaster were not like, way the hell somewhere else right now, I could actually play you Never Fade Away.
written by like a band you were in, or just by you, or?
By me, because at the time when I wrote it, we didn't have a band. Nobody else in the company could play anything except Lisa, and Lisa plays harp and penny whistle, which doesn't really go well with essentially a medium hard rock song.
Yeah, no, I I love the harp, but yeah, I don't see that one. Nah, that doesn't mesh well.
Irish. But yeah, basically almost everything Johnny Silverhand has ever played, I've written as a song at some point. And somewhere around here, I actually have a tape of Johnny Silverhand's greatest hits and a bunch of Carrie Eurodyne stuff, which is very different.
Wow.
Carrie Eurodyne sounds a lot like U2 when I was trying to reach for a U2 vibe. And then Johnny Silverhand is oddly enough a very John Cougar Mellencamp kind of thing. Kind of like
Really?
John Cougar Mellencamp. It was weird. I was in Dublin, as a matter of fact, like I said earlier this year, and I was going down one of the main drags in Dublin, Grafton Street, and there was a guy there who just looked like Johnny, and he was playing like Johnny-like music. And I recorded a bunch of stuff of him because I'm just going, my God, Johnny Silverhand is alive. This guy is Johnny.
Like, holy crap, he's real.
Yeah, it's kind of like I'm thinking, okay, so is this when I discover I'm not real and that I've just been reporting like the reality, and any minute now in '84, Philip Arasaka guy drops down and kills me.
You've been in the brain dance this whole time, and you just didn't know.
I've been down the whole time. Yep, that's it.
Thanks for being on the show. You made my year. Thank you so much for this.
You've been listening to Long Thoughts with Baloo. Do you create? Know someone who does? Have ideas or feedback? Contact Baloo at radiobaloo@gmail.com. That's RADIOBALOO at gmail.com.